Murder.
Who did you murder for money, Raymond?
I said you, Father. What are you, deaf?
He wasn't a bad kid, was he?
Yuri.
He'll give you the gun. Ring me on the public phone.
The movie kicks off in Bruges, Belgium, where two Irish hitmen, Ray and Ken, are lying low. They're there because a job in London went sideways, and now they're just killing time, waiting for instructions from their boss, Harry. Ken seems to love the charm of Bruges, taking in all the medieval vibes, but Ray can't stand it. He's frustrated about being stuck there, especially since it's Christmas and they're stuck sharing a single room. Right away, you can tell something's eating at Ray. Ken mentions what went down in London, and it hits a nerve. Ray storms off and ends up crying by himself. He's not just annoyed about Bruges. He's completely miserable about their situation. He even grumbles about why Harry didn't send them somewhere sunny, like the Bahamas, instead of a cold old city. Ken suggests they make the best of it and do a bit of sightseeing, starting with a climb up a city tower. Ray's having none of it though, so Ken goes solo. At the entrance, Ken finds out he's short on change for the €5 ticket, and the cashier refuses to let him off easy. Begrudgingly, he breaks a €50 note to pay. Once he's up at the top, Ken enjoys the view, spotting Ray below. He can't resist making a pretend gun gesture at him, a cheeky nod to their line of work. Meanwhile, Ray is hanging out in the square when an American family approaches him, asking if he's been up the tower. Ray, in classic Ray fashion, is rude about it, suggesting they'd struggle with the climb because of their weight. The situation escalates when he calls them bleeping elephants, and the dad tries to chase him. The pursuit is over before it really begins, and the family stomps off, insulted, deciding to climb the tower anyway. Upstairs, they cross paths with Ken, who unwittingly warns them about the narrow stairs. They lash out at him, and when Ken later mentions the incident to Ray, Ray plays dumb. Later, the two stumble across a film shoot in Bruges. Ray is immediately intrigued, especially by a dwarf actor named Jimmy. He's so amused that he can't stop staring. Then he notices Chloe, a stunning young woman on set, and assumes she must be famous. While Ken heads back to their hotel to check if Harry has left any instructions, Ray sneaks onto the set and chats with Chloe. She corrects him on his language when he refers to Jimmy as a midget instead of dwarf, but that doesn't stop Ray from being fascinated by Jimmy. He ends up asking Chloe out, and when she gives him her number, he's over the moon. Back at the hotel, Ken finds a note from Harry, delivered by the very pregnant hotel owner. Harry's furious they missed his call, and the note is filled with colorful language. Ken, feeling embarrassed, decides to turn in for the night. Ray, however, comes back full of energy, eager to share his excitement about Chloe. Ken listens patiently despite being exhausted, and even agrees to wait for Harry's next call so Ray can go on his date, on the condition that Ray joins him for some sightseeing first. Their dynamic shows a subtle but touching bond, almost like an older brother or father figure looking out for Ray. The next day, they visit an ancient church. Ken is fascinated by the history and explains its religious significance, even suggesting that touching a holy relic could be a chance for Ray to atone for his past mistakes. But Ray isn't interested. He brushes it off and walks out, leaving Ken visibly disappointed. Outside, Ray spots Jimmy across the street and enthusiastically waves, but Jimmy ignores him. Annoyed, Ray mutters to himself about the snub. Flashback to London. Ray is in a confessional booth, telling a priest he's a hitman. Before the priest can even react, Ray casually says "you" and shoots him. As the priest collapses, a horrifying truth is revealed. A stray bullet has hit a young boy praying nearby. The boy's innocent note, full of hopeful intentions, lies beside him as he succumbs to his injuries. This tragic mistake is the reason Harry sent Ray and Ken to Bruges. The guilt of killing a child haunts Ray deeply. That evening, Ray and Chloe head out for dinner. Their conversation quickly takes an unconventional turn. Ray openly admits he's a hitman, and Chloe confesses she deals drugs to film crews. Neither seems bothered by the other's questionable career choices. Ray, ever blunt, starts bashing Bruges and even makes an offensive joke about Belgium. Instead of taking offense, Chloe fires back with equal bluntness, matching his energy. When Chloe steps away to the restroom, a nearby diner makes a snide remark about her smoking. Ray, overhearing this, doesn't hold back. He calls the man out, pointing out they're in a smoking section. The argument quickly escalates, with insults flying, and even touching on political stereotypes. Ray's temper flares, and he ends up physically confronting the man and his girlfriend. Chloe returns to find the commotion in full swing. Instead of being put off, she's impressed. They leave the restaurant together, and as they walk, she kisses him, showing she's clearly into him. The night takes a turn when they head back to Chloe's apartment. Just as things are heating up, her boyfriend Eric bursts in with a gun, clearly intending to rob Ray. Ray's reaction? Pure frustration, not about the gun, but about the ruined moment. It turns out Chloe wasn't in on the robbery plan. She genuinely likes Ray. In a quick move, Ray disarms Eric and discovers the gun is loaded with blanks. Ray fires one at Eric's eye, leaving him in pain but unharmed. Eric's tough guy act crumbles into something almost pitiful. Chloe takes Eric to the hospital, but not before telling Ray to call her. Meanwhile, Harry finally calls Ken. To cover for Ray, who's still on his date, Ken lies, saying Ray is in the bathroom. Harry starts asking oddly specific questions about how Ray feels about Bruges. Ken improvises, claiming Ray finds the city magical, which pleases Harry. But Harry's approval comes with a dark twist. He wants Ken to kill Ray, believing Ray's crime in London is unforgivable. He even arranges for a gun to be delivered in Bruges for the job. Ken is conflicted. He knows Ray is tormented by guilt and believes he has a shot at redemption. Unable to shake his doubts, Ken heads to a bar to drown his thoughts in Belgian beer. There, he spots Jimmy, the dwarf actor, enjoying the company of a prostitute. Ken strikes up a casual chat with Jimmy and finds out he's American. He throws in a playful remark about keeping things peaceful during their talk. A little later, Ray joins them and, still peeved about earlier, asks Jimmy why he ignored him. Jimmy, feeling the effects of being drugged, brushes it off. The group, joined by two prostitutes, ends up in Jimmy's room for an odd night of drinking and talking. Things get weird when Jimmy launches into a bizarre rant about a racial apocalypse. Ken, visibly upset, claps back, revealing a painful part of his past. His black wife, who was tragically killed by a white man. It's a raw moment that shows Ken's complex and emotional side. The night eventually fizzles out, with Ken and Ray heading back to their hotel, wanting to put the strange conversation behind them. The next day, Ken grabs a gun to carry out Harry's orders to kill Ray. An eccentric guy gives Ken unsolicited tips about a quiet spot in the park perfect for, well, business. Annoyed by the advice, Ken heads out but learns from the hotel owner that Ray's been acting odd, and even left a generous tip before going to the park, supposedly to end his own life. When Ken gets to the park, he finds Ray holding a gun to his head, ready to pull the trigger. Ken, with his own gun in hand, hesitates. It's a tense moment as both men confront the situation. Ken stops Ray from killing himself, and in doing so, Ray realizes Ken was sent there to kill him too. This gut-wrenching realization leads to an emotional standoff. Instead of pulling the trigger, Ken decides to let Ray live. He pleads with Ray to leave Bruges and start over somewhere new. Redemption, Ken says, is still possible for him. Ken explains Harry's orders, showing how much risk he's taking by sparing Ray. Ray, deeply touched, agrees to leave. Ken hands Ray 200 euros, takes his gun to stop him from trying anything drastic again, and makes sure he boards a train to safety. As Ray's train pulls away, Ken heads back to the hotel to face Harry. Knowing full well the consequences of disobeying his boss, Ken sets up a meeting in the town square, bracing himself for whatever comes next. But Ray's escape is short-lived. On the train, he's confronted by a steward over an assault allegation. Turns out, the diner from the previous night, who turns out to be Canadian, not American, reported him. Ray gets kicked off the train and, in a cruel twist of fate, finds himself back in Bruges. Chloe, who still has feelings for Ray, gets him out of jail. They grab a drink together in the city center, blissfully unaware that Harry has arrived in town and is looking for Ken. Harry meets with the same quirky gun dealer, who happens to be Eric's uncle. Eric, now permanently blinded from the blank shot Ray fired, is also there. Harry, furious at the chaos Eric caused, scolds him, blaming his injuries on his own stupidity. Meanwhile, Ray and Chloe are enjoying their time at a cafe when they run into Jimmy again. Jimmy invites them to a film shoot, but they politely decline, sharing a laugh over Jimmy's costume. Harry finally catches up with Ken in the square, and they agree to talk at the top of the tower. Ironically, they walk right past Chloe and Ray without noticing them. When they reach the tower, the guard refuses them entry because of an earlier incident. Harry, furious, deals with the guard aggressively, while Ken uses the distraction to move ahead. At the top of the tower, Harry and Ken have a heart-to-heart. Ken surrenders his gun, showing Harry he won't fight back because of the respect he has for him. Harry, clearly moved, admits he can't kill Ken now. But when the conversation shifts to Ray, things get heated. Harry insists Ray deserves to die for what he did, while Ken argues that Ray deserves a second chance. Frustrated, Harry shoots Ken in the leg as punishment for letting Ray go. Despite the injury, Harry helps Ken down the stairs. As they make their way down, Eric shows up and informs them that Ray is back in Bruges. Harry, enraged, immediately draws his gun. Ken, determined to protect Ray, pulls out his own weapon, and the two face off. In the ensuing chaos, Harry shoots Ken in the neck. Severely wounded, but still alive, Ken struggles back to the top of the tower. Bleeding heavily, he drops coins from the tower to get Ray's attention. Down below, Ray sees the coins and looks up just in time to see Ken fall from the tower. Ray rushes to Ken, who is barely alive. In his final moments, Ken tells Ray about Harry and urges him to take his gun. Unfortunately, the gun is broken from the fall. Ray, desperate, asks if Eric has another weapon, but Ken dies before he can answer. Harry, finding Ken's body, spots Ray fleeing the scene. The chase is on as Ray dashes to the hotel to retrieve a weapon. He warns the pregnant hotel owner to get to safety and heads upstairs to grab the gun. Harry follows, but the hotel owner stands in his way, bravely confronting him. Surprisingly, Harry shows her respect and agrees to move the fight elsewhere. Ray suggests they settle things by the canal outside the hotel. Harry agrees, and they come up with an awkward plan. Ray will jump into the canal while Harry takes a shot at him from the bridge. Ray leaps into the canal and tries to escape on a passing boat. Harry, however, manages to shoot him, hitting him in the stomach. Ray, bleeding and in pain, gets off the boat and stumbles through the streets of Bruges. Harry relentlessly pursues him, and their chase leads them to the set of Jimmy's movie. The surreal atmosphere, with actors dressed in bizarre costumes, adds to the chaos. Harry shoots Ray in the back, and as Ray collapses, he utters the haunting words, "A little boy," referencing the tragedy that started it all. Jimmy, caught in the crossfire and dressed as a child for the movie, is also fatally wounded. Seeing Jimmy's childlike appearance, Harry mistakenly believes he's killed another child. Unable to live with himself, Harry sticks to his twisted moral code and takes his own life. As Ray is loaded onto a gurney, Chloe cries out, desperate to save him. Ray's voiceover reflects on life, death, and his wish not to die in Bruges.